It's hard in a way because I think to some extent the word power is a kind of placeholder or shorthand. But let me approach it from a different angle. I'm going to talk about it in a way that Foucault didn't, but he's now been dead for a long time, so we're allowed. So when I'm thinking in terms of systems, and I'm thinking in terms of systems as being dynamic, whether we're talking about conceptual systems or material systems or more specifically, whether, economic systems or discourses in particular fields of study or something. Anything that's dynamic, of course, has to have a certain amount of energy, and it's made up of forces in tension with each other. Could say that language is that way, that it's a system of signs that are in tension with each other, antonyms and synonyms and so on, in relationships. Things are held together because of tensions, and things are moved around because of forces and energy. I'm speaking in very general terms, but I think of power as being something more like that which enables, that which powers, motors things, not in the sense of authority or I can't think of another good word for it, but it's like a bully, somebody who's going to make you do things, or weaponry or something like that. Power can take those forms too, but when I think of power, I think of it as very generally as something more like energy or capacity to do, ability, something like that. And I think that's the case with Foucault's work, although I think Foucault also wasn't sure how to think about power. There's a lot of exploration and experimentation in some of his work in the late 70s when he was writing about sexuality and the little bit of writing he did about race. He wrote about power a lot during that period, and he was trying to think of it as he was trying to rid himself of the Marxist notion of power that he had inherited from his own education in France in the first half of the 20th century, where power is held by some people and exercised over other people who are relatively at least powerless. He didn't want to see power as something that one group held and another group lacked. He thought that was a bad model of power. He called that sovereign power, or juridical power sometimes. And he said that just doesn't explain anything. It's not a helpful way of thinking about power. So he experimented with these other ways of thinking about it. He tried to think about it on the model of war. He eventually rejects a war of all against all, sort of Hobbesian war. He rejects that eventually. He begins to talk about it as more like I was, forces in tension.